Hey YouTube, JP Dillon. Today we're going to look at this 1960s Sony pocket radio. You can see it's a little crusty. It's been kind of pulled out of the crevices of my workshop. And I don't remember why I stuck it away. I'm assuming that there is something wrong with it. But you can see the case is very dry. The leather is kind of coming apart here. The handle definitely doesn't want to do much more than retain that shape it was last in. Let's go ahead and see if we can pull it out of the case. The case is trashed. So this is a model Focus 4R-51, 6 transistor, frequency range 535 to 1605. I have 455 batteries, are 4 pen light UN3s, which I believe are double A's. So I have no idea what's wrong with this thing, if it even works at all. That's what we're going to find out today. We can see it's whatever plastic retainers held it together are no more. Looking inside of it, it's your typical 1960s Japanese construction. You've got your probably your converter, your first IF, and then you've got your AF here. Or actually, no, this is your second IF, your AF, your intercoupling, and then where are the output transistors? There they are, the little green things that look like capacitors. Let's get some light on this so you can see it. Yeah, so the green things are actually your output transistors. And then we've got our speaker and whatnot, so very well designed. Thankfully, someone did not leave batteries in it, although the battery compartment, as you can see, is pretty trashed. So I guess the first thing we need to do is figure out if the thing runs, and if so, how to fix this dry rotted battery compartment. Might just have to replace it altogether in the permanent long run. So the fact this runs on 4 AA's is going to suggest that it's a 6 volter. Since 1.5 times 4 equals 6, you can see that somebody tried to repair this previously. And they used tape, which obviously doesn't work very well. Let's see if I can get down here more on the level of the bench. There we go. Now, one thing you can do, if you've got a soldering iron, is you can attempt to fuse the cracks together just long enough to let some epoxy set. So I'm going to press this together like this, and then I'm going to run my soldering iron along the crack here, and when this liquefies, kind of push it into the crack. This is not a permanent fix. This just gets it to the point where you can epoxy it. And we're going to let that solidify again and then do the other side. And there is a crack down here, which I'm not sure that you can see that, but yep, there's a crack down here too. So let's just do this one while we're at it, making sure, of course, that it's properly set into the place where I want to affix it to. And then once this is mended together, then you take an epoxy of reasonable strength and you reinforce it. But for now, it's just a matter of holding it together. Because I guarantee you, as soon as you put it under any kind of spring tension, it's gonna die. Let me get the rest of this tape off of here. That might have been why it was canned, was because people were sick and tired of the battery compartment failing. This one's going to be a little bit trickier. I think we'll mend that a little bit at a time since it's kind of warped. Yeah, you just run your soldering iron along the crack and then push what liquefied plastic there is back into it and let it solidify. And it provides a good starting point. Whoops. A good starting point for epoxy. Yeah, that's almost firm. And then we'll do this last portion here, assuming it will cooperate. That's what the hemostats are for. Plastics. And we'll use this portion here. Okay, let that solidify. And then there's a strut. I don't know if you can see the strut there. That's a big old crack. And we'll see if we can push that into place. I think I'll clamp it from this side with the hemostats while I fuse this part of the crack, and then we'll get it from the other side. And we've got this one here over here that we have to fuse together. Should be able to do that now without needing to clamp it in place. And I'm just going to score the rest of this because we will eventually be putting epoxy down here and it needs something to stick to. Okie dokie. So this is still brittle. This isn't going to be a permanent solution. We will end up putting epoxy on this thing, but it may be that for the sake of trying it out, oh, there's another crack down there. Did I get that one? Yes, I did. That we just pack 4 batteries in here and see what this thing does. And if we're lucky, the only reason why it was mothballed was because the battery compartment broke, in which case we can shore this up with epoxy, make it happy, and that'll be the end of it. So let's get some batteries in it and see where we go from there. Alright, so I'm going to use the little Amazon Basics, which for what they are not bad batteries. They certainly don't have the leaking problems that the Duracells do. Let's see if it will cooperate without breaking. Ooh, I can see why that fails. That's a lot of stress on that part. You can see how much it flexed when I put the battery in. That's why it died. Poor design and old shrinking plastics. So let's put this one in here, and then this one down here. And let's see if it works. That's a good sign. It's making some kind of noise. And volume control's touchy.
Saturday at 10 o'clock. Yes, about an hour and a half. alcanzarán.
Tune in on your computer at home. The holidays are officially here.
There's KFI.
Yeah, and the point I want to make.
Pueden seguir. And the city's planning.
We've overcome.
Pretty good selectivity.
No support. They want the city to enforce the home sharing ordinance to stop party
There's
houses like
1070 KNX.
Lift to the kite, but I don't
There's
think
1090
necessary.
San
I don't think
Diego.
it's a
1070 News Radio.
1070,
you know, on a small
1090.
scale.
No bleed over.
It is just flat.
It's pretty good.
As you get to see. On his back. Sí, es un momento difícil.
Alright, so obviously we've got a noisy volume control, but that's fairly straightforward. We'll just squirt a little magic juice in here. Getting better. Alright, much better resolution now. Let's see what we get as far as usability.
The money-making opportunity. Look over there. Behold. It's so different in many ways. Christmas Eve, they went out there on that morning. 12 and too, that's wide. They're going to bid against.
Que cuando haces un voto Dios no tardes en cumplirlo, porque él no te bendice los necios. El voto que haces cumple. Es mejor que no hagas votos a que hagas votos y no cumplas.
You can't turn the volume all the way down. That could be due to a crummy volume control, or that could be on purpose. Like, for example, a lot of the older battery-operated tube radios never fully attenuated. Let's see if I can spray some more cleaner in here. They never fully attenuated because they wanted you to know that they were running. Because if you didn't, you'd forget them and you'd run the battery down. Yeah, I think it just never fully attenuates, no matter what you do. But it's working. So I think what I'm going to do now is finish scoring the battery compartment and then put a layer of epoxy on it. Because otherwise this thing will just break again. This is just a temporary solution. You saw how much this thing flexed when we put the batteries in. So let's go ahead and get some epoxy on this thing. Alright, so what I'm going to use is the infamous Bob Smith Industries 5-minute quick cure. It's this stuff here. Various outlets have it under their own brand name, but it's really, if you go down here, you'll see that it's made by Bob Smith Industries in Atascadero, California. Get a good shot of that. It's relatively inexpensive. It's decent strength. It's not JB Weld, but it also sets a whole lot quicker. And it's just a matter of mixing equal proportions and applying it liberally. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a plastic bag underneath the battery compartment, and we're going to score the back side a little bit more, just so that we have the extra grip that's needed for the epoxy. And I'm going to do the sides here too. It doesn't take long. It's 5 minutes to set. It's about an hour for cure and about 24 hours for regular use. But that shouldn't be an issue. Yeah, we need to do that top end there too. Now, I'm not going to take the batteries out, and the reason why I'm not going to do that is because the plastic has shrunk, and if I try to epoxy it with the batteries out and make it a little more realistic looking instead of stretched like this, there's a good chance that I won't get the batteries back in, or I'll have to cut a spring down or something like that. But right now this fits in here well enough that I'm just going to epoxy the plastic together with the batteries in, and that way I know that it's being glued together in a position that works rather than something that doesn't or is unknown to work. This squeaky stool. Come on. Then we'll use the equal amount of the hardener. It's a good thing I got a new set of this, because I'm about out of this stuff. In equal proportions. And then I just cut off the head of a Q-tip and mix it all together. And the reason why I've scored all this area is because you want to use a large enough surface area for grab that it's actually going to grab onto something. If you just put it over the crack itself, it's not going to be very useful. You need to distribute the load across the plastic, otherwise it's not going to work so well. And this stuff you want to mix until it gets tacky, kind of like that. Even maybe a little bit thicker than that. But I think for our purposes that this will work. And I'm just going to apply it in a large enough area around the crack. And you don't want to make it too thick if you have size constraints for the battery compartment, as we do. You also don't want to get any on the batteries, obviously. And the reason why you do this under a plastic bag is that this will not stick to the plastic bag very well. It will still stick, but not as well as it would on prepped surfaces like this. So if you have a little bit of running glue down the side or something like that, it just kind of sticks to the bag, and it's easy to get off the bag versus doing it to another surface where it would be very difficult to release it from the bag. And then let's do the little joist on top here, the last bit that we have left. Do that part. And then try to combine it with the slop on the other side. And when it dries well enough to be useful, and it's no longer sticky and gooey, we can put it back into the radio and reassemble the radio, clean the radio up a little bit because it looks kind of like crap. I'll probably hold on to the case just as something to put it in, but yeah, otherwise the case is pretty trash. I also need to come up with a way to better secure the back case, but maybe that's what keeping it in the leather case is for, although I find the red radio more attractive than the black case. So we're just going to let this kick it and do its thing for a little while. Gotta remember to put the bag down. Maybe I'll even put a prop underneath it to try to prop it up a little bit. That way it has a lesser tendency to stick to the bag. Now, as far as it staying on the back, we can see these little detents here that grabbed onto stuff onto the case, and those detents have long since gone away. One thing I can try to do is use some like sticky dampening compound to hold it there, or maybe a little dab of rubber cement just so that it stays together. We'll figure that out in a little bit, and maybe try to clean up this case a little bit while we're waiting, because the case is kind of crummy looking. I hate that this dry rots, because I mean obviously the case looks really slick, and you could do much better by putting it in the case. Let's see what just a little quick rub down does. At one time this was probably a really nice radio. We can see that even now the selectivity and sensitivity of it's really good. The fact that I can pick up KNX and KFI inside of this cinder block building with rebar suggests that this is a pretty hot little radio. Yeah, it's a little better. Not great, but a little better. Our epoxy is still a little tacky, so it's not quite ready yet. And maybe what I'll do while I'm waiting for that is to see if we can clean up the front of this somewhat. Because right now you've got some goober peas there in the grill cloth. Let me get a brush. Get a brush, a little bit of Windex, not much. And we'll clean the goobers out of this a little bit. It's just enough to clean it without the risk of getting fluid inside the speaker, which would be a bad thing. And let's just rub this thing down. This is actually really nice looking. I like that all transistor font, that professional looking font. The old Sony badge. When radios had character. And the build quality on this is obviously very good. Not a whole lot of electrolytic capacitors, really. I think you've got one here for probably audio coupling. You've got another couple here for interstage and probably AVL or AVC control. And then another one here probably for tone management or feedback. But it's working well enough where I'm not even going to investigate messing with it. I mean, it's really working well, so it's like, why screw with it? Alright, this is hardened, or at least firmed up enough that I think I can put it back in the case. It's not sticky anymore, it's hardening. And you can see the little bit here that tried to stick to the plastic bag but didn't. And I think I'm just going to cut that off. There we go. And then this can rest back up in here. And let's see if we can get the cover on over it. Yeah, look at that. So obviously up top you had your metal things holding it in, and on the bottom you would have had little plastic tabs. You had one here that's obviously broken off, and one here that's obviously broken off. So this was taken apart quite a number of times. And I think just as a function of use, well, not as a function of use, but to preserve it, and I'll just stick some speaker putty in there. You get some of that. So if you're curious as to what I'm going to use, it's a cabinet dampening sealer for putting around baskets of woofers and stuff. You can get it through Parts Express. It's part number 268-050, 268-050. It's a putty. And see if I can get it out of here and you can see it. Well, yeah, it's kind of like this roll of caulking speaker putty goo. And I'm just going to take two little pieces of it, and we're going to stick it underneath the case to kind of hold the case on, because it's non-destructive. And I think what I'll do is stretch some of this out and put it around the corner of the inside like that, and the other one I will press it on the corner of the inside like that. And then in theory, I should be able to push this, get these top parts locked in. Come on now. There we go. And then I should just be able to push over the putty like this. We'll of course get the excess away here. And that at least keeps the battery, the back cover on, worthwhile.
Automáticamente se activa y nosotros.
And also, Doug, what's going to be happening next year in our California legislature?
Well, that sounds like the good and the bad, I guess, Aubrey.
Or he's turning over. Because the other thing, too, is it costs money. You got a 200. I mean, countdown will start of this.
Feel hopeless or over.
Songs. Children to get involved because they couldn't get them off that phone.
Well, there you go. So there's our little repair job on our Sony 4R-51 portable. Clean a little bit of dust off the top here. Pretty neat little radio. Anyways, thanks for watching the video, guys. This may or may not be the last video you'll see of 2020, but hope to bring some more stuff at the beginning of next year. And we're going to start going through my storage of stuff, plucking things out, fixing it, and getting rid of it, because I've got way too much of it. It all needs to go bye-bye. So anyways, more stuff to come. Thanks for watching.